A former prosecutor who wanted to get Trump was left with no choice but to plead the fifth. Mark Pomerantz once oversaw the Manhattan DA's investigation into former President Trump, but when he was sat down to answer a few questions, he was left speechless. To plead the fifth means that you don't want to incriminate yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're guilty. However, it's a move to try to protect someone from potential harm that could be caused by their testimony. But here's the problem. Some of the questions asked of Pomerantz were very specific, meaning that it would have been very easy to answer with a simple yes or no. I'll let you guys hear what he had to say, but here's what experts are taking from this deposition. They say that he's playing it safe, answering almost everything with the Fifth Amendment. He was even asked about DA Alvin Bragg and chose to plead the fifth. Now, if you were not a corrupt person, being asked if you were corrupt or not would lead to a simple no. However, that's not the case here. Do note that when Pomerantz answers, he's pleading the fifth every single time, and that this deposition was released recently, but it was done last May.
Under the advice of counsel, I'm not going to answer that question, sir. Privilege against self-incrimination.
And did you knowingly break any laws when investigating President Trump?
Objection.
Same response.
Did you break any laws when you worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection.
Same response.
Ms. Pomerantz, did you violate any person's constitutional rights when you worked on the Trump investigation?
Objection.
I have the same response to your question.
Mr. Pomerantz, did you violate any person's constitutional rights while you worked at the Manhattan DA's office?
Objection.
Same answer.
Did you misuse any federal funds while investigating President Trump?
Same response.
Did you misuse any federal funds while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Same response.
And did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were investigating President Trump?
Objection.
Same response.
Did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection.
Same response.
And did you violate any canons of legal ethics when you were investigating President Trump?
Objection.
Same response.
Did you ever violate any canons of legal ethics while you worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection.
The same response.
Now, before we really get into this, guys, all I ask is that you take 1 second, hit the like button for the video, and thank you so much for sharing this video on Facebook and Twitter. If I were to ask you if you misuse federal funds, wouldn't it be better to say no? Because that's going to rub people the wrong way. By refusing to answer questions related to possible corruption, you open up the possibility that you were corrupt while in office, that you misused federal funds just to go after former President Trump. And that's what many analysts are saying right now. Pomerantz had nowhere to go. Answering truthfully would have landed him in hot waters. This means that it's possible that he violated legal ethics while investigating Trump, that he broke laws while working at the Manhattan DA's office, and that he did so while he knew for a fact that he was breaking them. And you have to wonder, what if Trump did this with his cases? What if he pleaded the fifth for every single question? Do you think Democrats would say that it's fair, or would they instead call him guilty for doing such a thing? Now, again, this is just a possibility, but I think we all know the answer to this. But if your conscience is clear and you know within yourself that you did nothing wrong, it would be easy just to say no to some of these questions. Now, what stands out here besides Pomerantz pleading the fifth is his opening statement. He states that the deposition is all for show, adding that it only happened because Donald Trump's supporters would like to use these proceedings to attempt to obstruct and undermine the criminal case pending against him and to harass, intimidate, and even discredit anyone who investigates or charges him. Now, this could explain why he pleaded the fifth the entire 5 or so hours of this deposition. However, it's kind of weird that he wasn't open to talking more about this, given that he released a book called People vs. Donald Trump. His book, People vs. Donald Trump, details his work investigating Donald Trump's alleged financial crimes as a special prosecutor. What do you think is the difference between writing a book that anyone can read and a deposition? Now, GOP Representative Matt Gaetz has called Trump's hush money trial a sham and adds that this deposition from Pomerantz amplified that idea. We also have to remember that Pomerantz quit as a special assistant to the DA back in February 2022. This was fueled by the reported fallout with Alvin Bragg because he was slow to act on the indictment against Trump related to his business practices.
The two prosecutors leading the Manhattan District Attorney's investigation into Donald Trump and his business practices abruptly resigned. Those two prosecutors had been leading a case that was centered around the allegation that Trump was inflating the value of his assets in order to obtain favorable loans from banks. And by all accounts, it was an investigation that appeared to be gaining momentum. But according to the reporting at the time, those two very high-profile prosecutors resigned after the newly elected DA, tasked with overseeing the case, quote, indicated that he had doubts about moving forward with the case against Trump. Now, tonight, the New York Times has published the resignation letter from one of those prosecutors, and it is remarkable. This is the resignation letter of Special Assistant District Attorney Mark Pomerantz, sent to the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg last month. Quote, as you know from our recent conversations and presentations, I believe that Donald Trump is guilty of numerous felony violations of the penal law in connection with the preparation and use of his annual statements of financial condition. The team that has been investigating Mr. Trump harbors no doubt about whether he committed crimes. He did.
Which begs the question, is Pomerantz simply doing this out of spite? Because it seems as if Bragg had nothing to charge against Trump back then. The only difference now is that Trump is running in the 2024 presidential elections. Experts from both sides are arguing if this can even be considered as election interference, much like what AG Letitia James, DA Fani Willis, and Special Counsel Jack Smith are doing right now. Bragg, on his end, has upgraded Trump's misdemeanor to a felony. When asked for the reason, the text explains itself. It says that Trump falsified business records with the intent to commit another crime and aid and conceal the commission thereof. And that's pretty much where we are right now, that other crime. Now, you have to think that with all of this being said and done, Bragg would have at least told us what that other crime was. But in a briefing last year, Bragg was condescending as he was asked about this other crime. When DA Bragg was asked about why the indictment doesn't even specify what other crime that they're talking about, the DA just answered by saying that it's not there because the law does not require it to be specified. You gotta be kidding me. But yep, that's exactly what he said. And that's the biggest problem for Bragg right now. He's got Trump right where he wants him, on trial. But the crime is still unclear to many people, the jury included in this group of people. Legal experts have already said that it's not a crime to pay for the non-disclosure of an alleged affair. It's also not a federal election interference offense to pay money as a personal or a legal expense. It's also worth noting that the statute of limitations for this case's misdemeanors, which includes falsifying documents, have already expired, which is why it's being called a sham. We've never seen a case where a dead misdemeanor from 2016 was brought back as a felony around the 2024 presidential elections, a federal election that includes the political rival of the incumbent president. And oddly enough, that rival has multiple cases going on during the campaign period of the presidential elections. Do you guys think that all of this just happens to be a coincidence? Because it's really difficult to cover a story where even you and I are in the dark about what crime DA Alvin Bragg is even talking about here. Meanwhile, crime continues to hit New York with residents fearing for their safety. Now you have to wonder if Bragg has his priorities straight as a district attorney. And the same goes for Attorney General Letitia James. But what do you guys think about all this? Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'll continue to get all the facts for you guys, all the breaking news that relates to this trial so I can keep you guys informed. I want to thank y'all for hitting the like button. Thank you for sharing this video on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll see you on the next one.